The Jaguars are getting busy in free agency as the early negotiating period starts. I'll tell you why I think they've done all right so far on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. You can find us on YouTube at our YouTube page that is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you tap in, hit the like button, subscribe button, and also hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. That's right. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. If your bet wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Shout out to the everydayers for making us your everyday listen. We appreciate that. And you can be an everyday. All you got to do is tune in every day. Shout out to my man Nate, who's an everydayer. Nate looked like he lifted every weight in the gym and walked up on me flexing and told me I'm an everydayer. He kind of raised up to give me the fist bump. I grabbed something because I said, if this big joker swing on me and hit on me about something I said online, we got a problem. But Nate wasn't about that foolishness. Nate was Nate the Great. Nate was just giving me props. So I told everybody, anytime you come up to me and say that, regardless of where I am, I'll give you a prop. I wish I had more everydayers. Evidently, I don't, because here's what we're going to get into. Legal negotiation begins today. We've been trying to explain the nuances of negotiating and historically based on what draft people do and what they like. Everything comes home to roost today. Now we're going to see what they do, and we don't have to speculate anymore. We'll talk about that in the first segment. Mitch Morris, the new center for the Jaguars. He brings so much value, and I'll tell you what that is also. The Jaguars have actually really helped their depth. They re-signed Blake Hance as well. Also, they traded for Mac Jones, Jacksonville native, quarterback from the Patriots. They give up a 6th-round pick. Not tripping on the compensation at all. But I will go through something in the third segment, because there are people that think that they got Mac Jones for next to nothing. I disagree with that. There are also some people that just don't like Mac Jones, the player, and they felt that anything that they gave up just wasn't good enough. I kind of disagree with that too. I understand his value. I just think reality needs to set in when assessing what these things are. But general managers love draft choices. And I'll give you an understanding of why I think late picks are devalued so much. Obviously, with what we've seen online, what I've seen online today, people really don't get it. It's all right. We'll take the time to try to explain it to you. All right, at the top, legal negotiation begins. I always hated the legal tampering term because that's an oxymoron. Tampering is illegal, so I don't know how you can make tampering legal without just calling it something else. So they call it the legal early negotiating period. We expect the Jaguars to be able to get busy. Just housekeeping, just in case there's some people that don't really understand the way this works. The Jaguars acquired Mac Jones, but they were able to sign Mitch Morse because Mitch Morse was actually released prior to free agency. The Bills needed to clear that cap space. Morse got a 2-year deal for $10.5 million with the Jaguars. In segment 2, we'll really discuss what that's all about, man. But look, let me explain something, and I'll do this just for general housekeeping. Anybody that knows me knows I'm easygoing. I'm the kind of dude, man. When I see you, I check on your family. I ask everybody what their name is, and I always tell people thank you and all. So when you don't agree with me on social media, that's fine. I told you I never debate to change people's mind. I get too many people trying to debate me to change mine. I'm not going to first take with anybody. That's not what I do. Fortunately, I have a monologue. I don't have anybody sitting there that wants to disagree with me about my take. And you can disagree all you want. It's not going to change how I feel. The only thing that's going to change how I feel is if something I said eventually when it comes to what happens on the field, and when those things say, no, Wig, you were wrong, that's when I come out and say, hey, man, I was wrong. That's it. I was wrong. Good on whoever did something good. But folks sitting here debating with me or trying to gaslight me into having a long, drawn-out conversation about my opinion, let me tell you what I will always tell you. If you want to know how I feel, refer back to whatever it was that you commented on, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a tweet. If you want to know how I feel, you can't. Opinions work both ways. That's like people who you never hear from, and then you run into them and say, man, you never called me on the phone. And I say, well, guess what? Phones work both ways. If I ain't ever called you, you ain't ever called me, then we're equal, right? So the thing about my opinion about these things is it's because of my knowledge of watching things for 48 years. The conversations I have, I trust me, are not conversations that most of the people have. And I can tell by the way they respond to me that most people have when it comes, like, for instance, late round picks. They are so valuable. I call them change. So everybody, I get all these sarcastic people. Yeah, that pick is worth a whole bunch. And then the other argument is, well, Balky was going to screw the pick up anyway. That's not, you might be right, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to argue that. Just because, we believe together that somebody is not good at their job doesn't mean that they're not still supposed to do their job. So just understand, I'm very good at this. And I don't just mean podcasting. When I say I'm very good at this, I have spent my life as a communicator, not just about sports and entertainment. I have been a professional communicator as long as I remember. One thing you will never get me to do is say two things at one time. You have to pay attention to context. If you don't, the interaction is going to go a certain way. I can't put it any bigger or better than that. And that's why sometimes we have these little misunderstandings. The legal negotiation period has begun. T. Higgins is apparently making himself available for trade because he doesn't believe the Cincinnati Bengals value him enough to give him a long-term deal. Whether or not the Bengals are willing to do that or hold on to him for one more year, get the production out of him this year, and then revisit this whole, we'll trade him in the offseason next year. See, they can still do that because Jamar Chase is still on a rookie deal. I think what the Bengals want to avoid paying big money to both receivers and their quarterback at one time. You have to allocate these funds a certain way. They don't have to do that this year. So just because T. Higgins put himself on the market doesn't mean that they're going to trade him this year. They may be more than willing to pay him over $20 million just for one season to see what they can do this year, and then revisit moving on from him after this season. It's quite possible that that's what they're going to do, but we'll see. We'll see what that does for the market with Calvin Ridley. Also, Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman got a 3-year, $71 million extension. Does that bode well for Jaguar fans? No, because that's another guy that is going to be off the market and won't be someone that teams are willing to trade for. I think teams would rather sign Calvin Ridley outright than actually trade for anybody that they got to give up a high pick for and pay. But still, it either makes those teams move and understand exactly what it is they have to do. It makes more teams desperate that want to get a wide receiver when guys are locked up and they aren't potentially free, because the team might say, well, if we lose Calvin Ridley, then we have to do the compensation. We'll go that route. Well, if you don't have that choice, now you realize that losing Calvin Ridley might be like trying to drive to Waco, Texas, and say, I'll stop at the next gas station, not this one. Yeah, go Google that and see how that's going to work for you on I-10. All right, we'll discuss more of this in just a second. Talk about Mitch Morse, the value that he brings, what he gives this franchise, and the surprising structure of the contract that I think Trent Baalke hit a home run on. You heard me. I didn't stutter. I think Baalke hit a home run. We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On Jaguars in the second segment. Hang tight. This episode of Locked On Jaguars is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you Know that even if you have 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA. Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But listen, get this. Now, through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right. No cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to the IRA with the 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% match on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. Segment dos here on Locked On Jaguars. Felt like speaking a little Spanish. I was watching videos of a place that I'm going to be frequenting here within the next couple of months, and I've been trying to work on my Spanish. You notice I only said the number. I didn't say the rest of it, right? Mitch Morris, veteran center from Buffalo, played well for a number of years, is super athletic. And he's strong at the point of attack. That's why it's a good deal for the Jaguars to get him in at 2 years and $10 million. They got him in for a visit, and they did not let him go. Big time move by Trent Baalke. Good job for Trent. For those that think your boy is a flat-out hater, I'm going to tell you why I think this is a good job by Trent Baalke. One, I believe Morse can play. Two, I think they get him way cheaper than they would have had to pay for an option like Lloyd Cushenberry. We saw what James got to go back to Oakland or back to Las Vegas, rather than go back to Oakland, went back to Las Vegas. And that's even more. And it's a 2-year deal that gives Luke Fortner a chance to try to figure out either can he get stronger or can he learn to play with more leverage so that his strength is not a weakness for the team. It also gives confidence to Trevor Lawrence that he has a guy that Josh Allen had in front of him, and you didn't see Josh Allen running for his life involuntarily unless he was trying to just be Josh Allen. He wasn't doing it to try to save himself. I think this gives confidence to Trevor Lawrence, to those backs, that they're going to have a little bit more room once they hike the ball. It helps Trevor be able to step up into the pocket, and then it also helps Travis Etienne to not be number one in the league in getting hit as soon as you touch the football. It also probably gives confidence to Brandon Sheriff and to Ezra Cleveland, who came back, along with the rest of those linemen, that Mitch is going to come in here and he's going to be a veteran in that locker room. I can tell you right now, the fans are super stoked about it because it represents something bigger. And here's what it represents. That Trent Baalke actually can admit when he was wrong. He can actually admit, and the thing about it is, him being wrong it's not like every other GM it's not like Brett Veach gets him all right. He doesn't. What this means is it's okay, man, to admit that you need to do something more than what you've done, even if it is redundant. Because it's better to be redundant than to keep doing the same thing, expecting different results, knowing that you're not going to get it. And that's one of the things that we were wondering if Trent Baalke would ever do. Well, guess what? He did it. So it means that even Trent can have a little bit of self-reflection. Even Trent can say, you know what? No, man, we like the kid, but guess what? We gotta add something here. And it leaves the question, because I remember Press Taylor saying that they were very, very familiar with Luke Fortner because of the coaching that he had at Kentucky. It was somebody that they were very, very familiar with, and they knew that he ran the system. So I'm wondering if, much like when offensive line coach Phil Rauscher wanted Anton Harrison, I'm wondering if Doug Peterson wanted Luke Fortner because of that connection, and Trent acquiesced. And now it's not Trent correcting himself. It's Trent saying, look, Doug, I did what you asked me to do and it didn't work. So we got to boost this up, and we ain't giving up on the kid. But we can't sit here and stand pat and take a risk that Trevor Lawrence is going to be okay. Gone are the days of us risking our reputation of being right or wrong and gambling that our quarterback is going to be all right. You know what I mean? I've had a baby for the first time before, not actually me having a baby, but I was the father of a baby. If I had a baby, I'd be a billionaire. I'm telling you right now, with all that, going on. But the thing is I remember because of that baby, I had to childproof the house. Everything. I covered all the corners. I changed my locks. I did everything because that cargo and that human being that I love, my son Dion, who was my firstborn, was so precious. I wanted to make sure that there weren't any mistakes. So now the Jaguars have to do that when you have a franchise quarterback. You got to make sure, man, even if it's overkill, you got to make sure that you can protect him. You saw Trevor Lawrence running around, getting hurt, playing hurt, not telling the coaches he was banged up, that he hit his head early in the game. You know why you got to do all of that stuff? You got to do all of that stuff because you're a competitor. Everybody's putting it on your back. You know that this game is too important, and you might have to tell the coach that you can't go in, and then your backup has to come in cold. And I applaud Trevor for doing that. I applaud Trent for making sure that the quarterback doesn't have to shoulder all of that anymore, and it makes it less likely that he's going to get banged up. Now, that doesn't mean that Mitch Morse ain't going to ever make a play that we don't like. He just won't make as many as Luke Fortner. I think this extends drives. It puts him in better down and distance situations so it doesn't affect play calling as much and make him so predictable. Remember, the Jaguars missed the playoffs. Now, this is going to sound super optimistic by me, right? The Jaguars missed the playoffs because of a bunch of little things. It doesn't mean that you're just admitting that they're not that bad. I never said they were awful. The thing is these little things were things that in the past they ignored, and that was the problem for me. You can't ignore the little things because the little things, when you get enough of them, they add up. I remember I took a bucket of pennies. I had a big pickle jar full of pennies, and I took them to the grocery store. I just save loose change all the time, and I throw it in there. About every quarter, that's like $170 that I get. You tell me when I do that, those little things don't matter. Those little things add up. Little things like late picks. I'm going to go through a little bit of a tutorial here so people will understand exactly what I mean. And I'm going to take time and be patient enough to try to educate people about understanding the value of late round picks. I'm going to do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Got to let you know about that Game Time app, man. It is the real deal. How often have you tried to go buy tickets and procrastinate and be late and try to pick them up at the last minute, and you're scrambling? Your family's mad at you, and you remember the old saying you've heard before? Your lack of planning is not my emergency. Nonsense. If you're going to use Game Time, your lack of planning is their specialty and their expertise. The fact is, you can get tickets, last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals, easy to find, and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Views from the seats in the venue, lowest price guaranteed, even cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On, LOCKEDON, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Third and final segment here on a Monday. Locked On Jaguars with a legal negotiation period, not tampering. The legal negotiation period has begun. I'd like to thank the league, though, real quick, for all of these centers. That safety wasn't the only position where a lot of guys got free. All these centers being set free really, really helped the Jaguars because I think it lowered the market a little bit, and it created a situation where the Jaguars weren't going to use a first-round pick on a center. So I'm glad that that's over with. I got to tell you this, though. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Okay, let's get into this little subject. This is something, if you follow me on social media, I've been going back and forth with somebody or different people all day about compensation. So there's two things at play. The lust for people to be right about everything, all the way from the rooter to the tutor, the absolute, usually leads to a bunch of debates, especially with me. And I hate debating, okay? It's my pet peeve. I think everyone thinks that everything needs to be debated, as opposed to somebody having a perspective, you having a perspective, and then you stretch them to kind of meet at common ground and understand why the other person feels the way that they feel. Some things are absolutely fact, and they aren't to be debated. Like what I prefer. That's on me. It's my business, and it could change from a daily basis. But what I prefer, usually at the time that I say I prefer it, is what I usually put out. You got people that, when the Mac Jones deal went down yesterday for a 6th-round pick, former 1st-round pick Mac Jones traded to the Jaguars from the Patriots for a 6th-round pick as a backup quarterback, that didn't want, I guess, to hear the nuances of the deal being broken down. Things that I can understand and relate to, all of it. I understand why they did it. This kid that was a few years ago was a 1st-round pick. He's won a lot of games in the NFL. He's probably better than anybody you're going to get beyond the 3rd round this year in the draft. And you can bring him in as your backup. Correct. If Mac Jones has resigned himself to being a backup for the rest of his career, that's good and bad. One, we want competitive guys, right? So I don't think that's the case with Mac. I think Mac views this as a pit stop in a good situation for a playoff team with a good coach. And everybody knows in this league that everybody's a concussion protocol or a twisted ankle from you needing a backup quarterback that can sustain and play you a couple of games. Mac has done that, right? Mac has won some games. He's lost a lot of games, but he's won some games. I think it's worth it. Definitely worth it. But then folks want to pile on and say, definitely worth it because the GM wasn't going to make the right pick with the pick anyway. You got the right to feel that way all day. But that goes back to something else, and that's why I call it cat chasing tail. You don't want your GM doing something because he's bad at his job. The reality is he probably is bad at his job. So for you as Jaguar fans, it's good that he went out and found a backup quarterback with a pick that he probably was going to screw up anyway. Doesn't negate the fact that you have a GM that might screw the pick up. And he might screw the pick up if it's a 2nd-round pick. So that's a bad thing, right? It's okay to feel that way and also feel, well, that's a bad reason to do it, but you can do the right thing for a bad reason, right? Okay, so then there's this other part, and it's the extreme. I guess we're in political season, so people understand it. They'll state something that is totally untrue. 6th-round pick don't mean much anyway. Bull crap. I call BS. And then those that when I say that, they'll go 6th-round pick. Like I'm talking about the pick has to be used in the 6th round. It ain't like I sat here and said everybody was going to end up being Tom Brady. No. When I say it that it has value, I mean in a package. So what I did was I facetiously asked everyone, sarcastically, what's the best trade for a veteran player the Jaguars ever had? They immediately found out. Now, honestly, some people I muted and blocked. I don't know if they answered the question or not, but they probably couldn't if I blocked them because they didn't see it. But I only blocked to save me and you a chance, because you can see this on YouTube. I just wanted to save us some headache because I saw the nature of our interaction and I saw its intent. Or maybe I took it the wrong way. I doubt that very seriously, but I may have. But I know for some reason everybody, you ain't my cup of tea. I don't like rum. Some people like rum. I don't. It gives me a headache. So I stay away from it. So I stay away from people that tend to give me a headache. And it might not be because they're bad people. It just might be because the way they think and the way I think are two different things. And one of us has to just tell the other one it ain't going to work. So here's the thing. When you look up those deals, it came up. Mark Brunell and everybody was bringing up Fred Taylor. They traded for a pick. They still had to draft Fred Taylor. They traded for the right to draft Fred Taylor. A-Rob, they did the same thing. They traded for the right to him. But even in those scenarios, there was something that existed in the trade. It was change. And by change, I mean the loose change. Like the loose change I talked about when I put it in the pickle jar, right? And I took it every quarter, I take it and I average about $170. That's what I'm talking about. Mark Brunell was traded for a 3rd and a 5th round pick. Marcel Darius was traded for a 6th round pick. To think that things don't have any value, but then to have those very things, either one, in the Darius situation, traded for a straight up player who was pivotal in the way the Jaguars moved in 2017, or that was a part of a package that got a player who was in the Ring of Honor and is the best quarterback so far that this organization has ever had. Maybe not the most talented, but the best. He's in the Ring of Honor in Mark Brunell, a friend, by the way. Then, just this weekend, things that I gave Balky credit for, they used a 6th round pick to get their backup quarterback on a team that they hope goes to the playoffs. And a player that they re-signed before he hits free agent, Ezra Cleveland, who's your starting left guard, they traded that. They traded for him last year at the trade deadline with a 6th round pick. And Calvin Ridley, the kid that is on the team that the Jaguars are either going to give up a 2nd or a 3rd round pick for, in addition to the 4th and the 5th that they gave up last year. Another deal that got done because, not because just of solely, but got done because they were able to add change in the back. General managers love their draft choices. For those that are saying that prognosticators told them that this is the worst draft or not a very good draft, folks that do this for a living always think that every draft is bad beyond number 5 or the 5th round. It falls off after the 5th round. Every draft falls off under the 5th round. But a draft where up to as many as 4 quarterbacks are going to be taken in front of the Jaguars, which basically means that instead of picking 17th, they're picking 13th. And then if you add a tight end, they're not going to take a tight end. That means the pick becomes 12th. A draft with that many people up top is not a bad draft because there are going to be people jockeying to get up there. And it will require change on the back end, especially if the team that has the pick in previous years have traded away a lot of picks and they just need bites at the apple to fill out their roster. Carolina, if you're going to trade from 48 to 35, Carolina will take some of that change. Give them 48, 96, a 5th, and a 6th. That's 4 picks. They'll take it. The Ricky Williams deal back in the day, there's a lot of change in there. It wasn't a whole bunch of first-round picks like the Herschel Walker deal. It was basically the Saints' entire draft. That's a lot of change. Every trade the Jaguars have ever made for included that change, but people say it doesn't have value. I don't understand how you can Google something and see the value and still sit here and say it doesn't have value. Jonathan Grenard, another edge rusher, is off the board. He has agreed to terms with the Minnesota Vikings. That is breaking news here on early negotiation day. Those picks have value. Somebody told me the Patriots just took the 6 because they couldn't get anything else. They probably didn't have much value. That's the organization that picked the greatest quarterback to ever play in the 6th round. If you do that one time in your lifetime, you'll never say that it doesn't have any value. I just want y'all to know that that's how it works. Just because you say something or feel something doesn't mean it's true. I probably have talked to more general managers too. 7, by the way, in the last 5 years. I probably talked to them, agents, more in my sleep than the people that are disagreeing with me online about these picks. It's where I got it from. It's where I understand. That's why I understand things the way that I do. This is where I get it from. I do this for a living. I don't do this for play. Sorry if it doesn't make you feel good. All you got to do is pay attention and we can have good interactions. But come back tomorrow because I'm all out of that today. You can pay attention to the podcast wherever you get it, wherever podcasts are located, audio-wise, and then go to YouTube or Locked On Jaguars YouTube page and get that for free. Make sure you subscribe, become an everyday. Until tomorrow, you guys take care. Tony Wiggins.